Hi, everyone is talking about ChatGPT and Perplexity for academic research, but they're missing something huge. What if your AI assistant could tap into academic databases, your own documents, and the web all at once? I built exactly that, and in the next 10 minutes, I'll show you how. And the best part, you can build this yourself for free. So let's get into it. In one of my previous videos, I showed you how you can build your AI research assistant using Crew AI Agentic Framework. And in this vlog, I'll show you how to do that using NA10 workflow system. But before we dive into NA10, let me give you a walkthrough of the architecture, how it looks like. Everything starts at the entry point, where the chat interface interacts with the user. User provides input in the chat interface, and based on the input, the chat agent orchestrator decides where to navigate that query to. The orchestrator is responsible for understanding the user query and kind of like propagates that to a specific agent. The orchestrator agents can propagate the information to 3 different sub-agents. It starts with the research agent, where arXiv API is helpful to prepare all the preprint related journals based on the topic that user passed through their query. Semantic Scholar provides the AI power ranking, and based on that, you will get the highest powered, higher powered ranking articles. Cross-reference decides with some of the referencing fact in the published paper, and Gina AI helps you with getting certain URLs of that research papers. Parallelly, Agent Orchestrator also calls the web research tools such as Wikipedia, SERP API, and web search. You can utilize the API versions of these tools to interact with the internet. And the final one is the RAG. In certain cases, you can also build your own RAG internal database. So before Orchestrator calls any APIs and stuff, it can first look at that query information in the knowledge database in the RAG system, and if they find relevant articles, they will first share those kind of articles to the user. So this way, you can make your system a little faster. If you can utilize different kind of vector databases like Pinecone, OpenAI, Document Index that will help your query retrieval faster and efficient, and also helps the user to get relevant article information quickly based on their query input. Now, finally, gathers all the information from different source system, whether it is API call or is RAG system call. It combines all the output from those systems into an output parser layer, performs some sort of a validation to make sure that there is no hallucination or irrelevant information getting passed on to a user. And finally, it provides the research response back to the user interface. There are certain cases you can you have the control to change your interface in such a way that the research response either could go to a chat interface or it could connect to a SMTP email box. So every morning you're going to get an email based on your research query. All right, here's the workflow inside NA10. You can see there are plenty of nodes there. The total count is 31. Let's start at the beginning. This chat interface node is the beginning of your message retrieval. There is a manual trigger options also available, but I'll get to that later. For the chat interface nodes, this is where the user will provide their input. So this is the main entry point. Once we get done with the chat interface, based on the query generates from the chat interface, we'll pass on to the chat agent. So this chat agent is nothing but generating, receiving all the inputs in the form of question or query or whatever, and then it passed on to the next step. Now, this chat agent is responsible to call this OpenAI orchestrator. And this OpenAI orchestrator agent is responsible to perform all the main tasks. Like, for example, depending upon the user query, this OpenAI chat model orchestrator node will decide where to pass the information to. Before it gets passed on to it also has an orchestrator agent. So it connects with this orchestrator agent, and orchestrator agent decides where that user query would navigate to. If the user wants some sort of a research-related article, then it will pass that particular query to arXiv research tool. If it requires some additional analysis at the semantic layer level, it's going to pass it on to the Semantic Scholar. There's another information and a few other nodes there, which helps the orchestrator agent to get further additional details like as web search, a Surf API, and Wikipedia research tool. Surf API is very powerful tool in terms of connecting your agent to the interface. In Wikipedia is also very useful source of information for collecting any stuff. And we do also have like our general web search level details. The way this workflow has been set up, this orchestrator agent will first look for information in the web search through SERP API and then Wikipedia. If it gets all the relevant information, it will pass back that to the chat interface. If it doesn't, if the user requires further details such as citations, articles, and all kind of stuff, then it calls these other nodes related to cross-reference, arXiv, and Gina. If you're an AI researcher in the academic area, you must be familiar with arXiv, which is a manual preprint option that gives researchers to upload their research journals and articles in a quicker manner. So arXiv has always been a very trustworthy source in terms of generating research paper and stuff. At the end of the workflow, there is a research output parser in there, which helps with the information to be kind of retrieved and passed back to the chat interface accordingly. Now, in my next section, I'll show you how this chat interface works in a real time to help you, get an understanding. And then you can always look at the YouTube vlog description to gather information around the GitHub repository, because in the GitHub repository, I uploaded this agentic workflow system exported from NA10 in a JSON file format. Also, all you need to do that you need to download that JSON file and upload it into your NA10 account, and then you will be able to get this kind of agentic workflow, and you can do further enhancement on that, or you can remove, add, or edit any nodes to your based on your requirement. All right, let's see how this chat interface works, which powered by this OpenAI chat portal orchestrator. In order to receive the production URL of the chat interface, you can fetch it from the chat interface nodes. The simple way to do that is just click on the chat interface and again click on these three dots, which will give you a copy production URL option in the dropdown. So just copy it. Now let's open it in a different browser to see how the chat interface looks like. Hi, so this is the chat interface that we're going to test now. It's powered by NA10 workflow, which is running in the behind the scene, and it's also generating all the research paper related output using some of the API tools and stuff that we constructed through agentic workflow architecture. I'll start off with asking this chat interface one simple query. What are the key findings from the revolutionary transformer research paper that influenced the large language model development? This chat interface might take a few minutes, it depending upon how extensive the search would be to fetch all the information from arXiv or relevant research paper or journals. It appears that it started generating some outputs based on the query that I asked. As you can see that it's generating all the relevant research papers, because at the end of the day, the main output or main query was what are the key findings of the transformer research paper. It's providing some of the article related information or some of the research paper that's cited in that transformer research paper. You can always fact check that by comparing this output against the main journal paper, and that way we can validate that output as well. As you can see, the key findings from the research papers are the bidirectional process shaping from multimodal reasoning. It's also linking to the paper that it cited in that main transformer research paper, as it feels like it was able to provide some key findings from the research paper that influence the transformer architecture development. Let's test this chat interface with another query, and this will be related to some sort of a mixed query, kind of like something that's related to RAG. Like, what is retrieval augmented generations, and what are the latest paper on improving RAG accuracy? So let's ask this question to the chat and see what happens. All right. After a couple of minutes, the chat interface started generating outputs providing some useful information related to retrieval augmented generative technique, which is also known as RAG. These are the research papers are related to RAG, and I would highly recommend you to take all these research paper informations, do your own fact check to make sure this innate and agentic workflow providing relevant information, and they're also transparent and coherent. Now, you can also see that it's also ready to format a structured response with the findings and resources. So this is really helpful because at the end of the day, as a researcher, you want to make sure you can trace back the output that this chat interface showing for transparency and compliance purposes. So what this chat interface is doing is first fetching all the information from arXiv and related to journals, and then it's it's combining all the resources and provide you a structured output, right? It seems the chat interface stopped generating further output because it's already summarized all the informations that we need in terms of the query that I asked. So if you can just go over this output, as you can see that it's so comprehensive. It breaks down all the research findings related to RAG and providing supportive research paper that's already out there. You can click on each and every research paper. It's going to take you to their, the main page. Right now, I'm not showing it at this moment, but you can always build that agentic workflow on your site using the JSON file that I uploaded into the GitHub. This output seems to be very comprehensive. And here, you don't have to spend a lot of time of writing a very, would say, an extensive query. You just write a one-liner query, and agent was able to provide you all the information. This part you won't find when you're doing the same research using ChatGPT or Perplexity, because you have to provide a lot of information over there. At the end of the day, the conclusion is the research indicates several innovative techniques and frameworks aimed at improving accuracy and retrieval augmented generation. If I'm an AI researcher, this is what I need to start my RAG-related research work first. So I definitely give this output a pretty high 9 out of 10. But obviously, we need to do some fact checks. So I will recommend you to run this workflow on your side, fact check all the links provided by this output, and make sure that all the research papers are related to RAG and also helping you your own research analysis. So that's all for today. If you like this particular vlog, I highly recommend you to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel because more contents on AI agent, agentic workflow, and other AI related stuff are forthcoming.